How do you kind of just assess the overall picture of what Avery did this year and then look ahead and how big of a step could he take going into that third full-time year at Kansas State?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I feel like he had an overwhelmingly positive season.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome to the final 3-Maw bonus pod edition of the season with former K-State wide receiver and partner at Wildcat NIL, Curry Sexton. I'm your host, Cole Manbeck, and we are here today to break down the Wildcats' 44-41 victory over Rutgers in the Rate Bowl in Phoenix on December 26th as K-State overcame a 17-point second-half deficit, the largest in bowl history for the Wildcats. As always, we're going to go over 10 to 12 plays on film using the All-22 footage to highlight some of the good and the bad from K-State, get Curry's expert analysis on what we saw, and we'll get Curry's overall thoughts on the season, look a bit ahead to the 2025 season as well, the transfer portal and all the activity going on there as well. But first, the win, as always, called for a drink from our friends over at Holiday Distillery. Hopefully many of you were on the receiving end of some Holiday Distillery's Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon over the holidays. If you were not, hopefully you're able to grab a bottle to take in the new year with family and friends this New Year's Eve. Shout out to our guy Joe Tillery, who tweeted at us recently that he gifted a bottle of Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon to his brother as a best man bid over the holidays. Be sure to check out all the great work Joe does covering the Cats over on his YouTube channel. Curry, let's just dive right in out of the gate, and we'll make this our top storyline of the week, brought to you by our friends over at Elanco, premier home improvement company based out of Kansas City. And for me, the top storyline is the offense, but more specifically, the K-State rushing attack. Look, we wondered what the backfield would look like without DJ Giddens paving the way, and all year we kept wanting to see that game from Dylan Edwards where he really had the opportunity to pop. And we got that on Thursday night in Phoenix. As a team, K-State ran for 351 yards on 40 carries if you exclude the 2 end-of-game kneel downs. The 351 yards on the ground were the most against an FBS opponent during Kleiman's time at K-State and the most ever by K-State in a bowl game. Dylan Edwards runs for a bowl record, a K-State bowl record, 196 yards on the ground while averaging nearly 11 yards per carry en route to being named the bowl game's offensive MVP. How do you react to what you saw from the Wildcats rushing game and what made it so successful on Thursday?
Just super impressed in all honesty. I think it was, like you said, it was exactly what we'd been hoping for all season long with Dylan, but obviously with DJ in the backfield, that hasn't been possible. And so to me, I think the biggest takeaway is that I think the fact that DJ Giddens was not on the field on the 26th was it probably helped our creativity. It probably caused us to get a little bit more creative with our play calling and our usage of personnel, which led to a lot of success that we saw running outside of our normal schemes, running off tackle, running outside power, wider schemes instead of going back to the inside zone over and over and over again. And so I think the fact that DJ Giddens wasn't out there caused our offensive staff to have to be a little bit more creative, which I think was hugely beneficial for Dylan Edwards and also for Joe Jackson, but also for Jace Brown and other guys as well. And so just really impressed by the creativity, the variation in the play calling, the way that we were getting guys the ball, in the run game. I mean, we saw Dylan Edwards get the ball on multiple jet sweeps. We saw Jace Brown go for 35 yards on a reverse. I don't know how many times we were in a reverse this year, but it wasn't more than 1 or 2 prior to the bowl game. We saw Ty Bowman get the ball on a jet sweep. I mean, they were mixing it up, and they were, they felt like they had something against Rutgers on the edges. And so they exposed that, and they kept going back to that. And so I was impressed by the variation, was impressed by the creativity, and was ultimately impressed by Dylan and Joe. Just every time they got the ball, it seemed like they were making big plays. And so really fun game to watch, really fun to see those two pop off and showcase a little bit more of what they can do and what we can expect in 2025.
I want to expand on something you just said, Curry, because I wanted to ask you this. John asked me this on the live post-game show that he and I did. First of all, to your point, our guy Parker Eves on our Discord at patreon.com/3maw had sent over this stat earlier today, actually, and this is from Pro Football Focus. But In the regular season, K-State ran inside zone on 42% of their overall run plays. In the bowl game, it was at 22%. 50% of the run plays were off tackle or power wide in the bowl game. And so that just goes to your point that you just stated, that K-State was more creative, which then leads me into this next question, Curry. Is Connor Riley a better play caller without DJ Giddens?
Yeah, we only have a small sample size so far, but I think that small sample size says that, yeah, probably. I mean, there's reason to believe that, yeah, we're going to, next year we are going to see more creativity, because we're not going to have, at least right now, we're not going to have that workhorse in the backfield, that guy that you can lean on for 20, 25, 30 carries a game, who's going to make plays out of nothing. And so we're going to have to be more creative in order to move the football effectively in 2025. And so, yes, I do think in the small sample size of December 26th against Rutgers, it does seem like the fact that DJ Giddens wasn't out there is a good thing for Connor Riley. And that's no slight against DJ Giddens, because DJ Giddens is an unbelievable football player. But I think sometimes we became too reliant on him and his skill set and his ability to move the football for us. And now without him, we've got to get a little bit more creative, get better usage of our personnel, and find ways to move the football that isn't just handing the ball to number 31.
Yeah, absolutely. I echoed similar comments to John, too. I mean, we're going to need to see several more games before we make a decision on that, but we certainly saw some more innovation and more motion with the offense getting out to the edge, what I think we called for a lot this season, wanting to see with Dylan Edwards as well. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about Dylan as well. But first, got to remind everybody that Elanco is a local company based out of Kansas City. They're owned by tremendous K-Staters, and in an industry where many home improvement companies have been bought out by national corporations, Elanco has remained locally owned since they started in 1986. If you're thinking about getting new windows on your home, if you're going to do a bathroom remodel, Elanco specializes in premium window replacements as well as the Kohler Luxstone shower system. Need new siding on your home, new doors, the folks at Elanco have you covered there as well with the best products and top quality service. And you don't need to live in just Kansas City. Elanco covers much of western Missouri and northeast Kansas, the surrounding KC metro. So if you live in Manhattan, Emporia, Topeka, Wichita, or a small town in northeast Kansas, Elanco will come your way. Go to elancohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com. Check out all the services they offer. You can also give Sam, a great K-Stater, a call at 913-961-2165. He'll get you taken care of, answer any questions you have about your home improvement needs. Go support Elanco, a terrific local business, family owned and operated by wonderful K-Staters. Curry, Dylan Edwards, obviously fantastic. 196 yards on the ground on 18 carries, nearly 11 yards per rush. Also added 27 yards through the air, 26-yard receiving touchdown. We saw rushes from him of 65 yards in this game, 43 early on in the game, 36. 3 of his 4 longest runs of the season came in the bowl game. And look, we'd been waiting for an opportunity to see Dylan really have the chance to shine and have that explosive game. And he got that in this. Just how happy are you for the kid and Dylan Edwards to have that opportunity and to get that chance to really shine in a bowl game like that?
Yeah, throw up for Dylan. Obviously, he's been through a ton over the last few years and quite a roller coaster of a journey. And so I know it's not been easy for him. He went from one of the most highly touted recruits in his class, a guy who had opportunities from virtually everybody in the country, was committed to us in Notre Dame and then signed with Colorado. His first game against Colorado, he absolutely went off and put the country on notice as a true freshman, and then wasn't able to have that same level of success that the rest of his true freshman year, which ultimately led him to coming back to Manhattan, coming home. And so I think coming home, there's a lot of, there's a mixed bag of emotions there. And the expectation is that, you're coming home to be a showstopper, to be a guy who's going to be a real difference maker. And we saw that from time to time with Dylan this year, but never saw it to the degree, even close to the degree that we saw it on Thursday night. And so I think for him, I'm sure it's a moment of relief. And also probably has a little bit of a feeling of I told you so. So happy for Dylan. This is something that I think everybody's been looking for. I think especially Dylan, and so to get that opportunity before the season is over, I think it helps get that season ended on a strong note. Now Dylan has to feel really good about, hey, this is how I'm going to be utilized going into next season where we don't have a DJ Giddens sharing the backfield. And so he is going to be a guy who's going to be more of a focal point. And I think that was a showcase on Thursday night to make sure Dylan understands what that looks like for him. how can you get Dylan Edwards 10 to 15 touches in creative ways where he's getting out in space and he's making guys miss, and he's showing that elite speed that he has. And so super excited for Dylan. I know this meant a ton for him and for his family, and I know I'm sure it feels like the weight of the world is lifted off his shoulders, and so just really excited for him. And I think this is a springboard for Dylan Edwards as we go into the 2025 season.
And Curry, as we look ahead to the 2025 season, I think we got a glimpse of maybe how they may plan to utilize him a little bit differently, not only with getting him on the edge more in this game, but also in the receiving game. Look, there was the first drive of the game. If the ball, I think people said it might have been tipped. Dylan's open out in the flat, probably going to be a touchdown if Avery's able to hit him on the first play there inside the red zone on that very first drive. K-State had to settle for a field goal, but also a couple vertical routes where K-State had him down the field, and one of them he had 3-4 steps on the defender. Avery just overshot him by a couple of yards. There was another one where he had his guy beat by a couple steps. There was a safety coming in over the top, so it was a tighter window. But that was one of the few times I think we've seen Dylan going vertical more so and getting him in mismatches. There were a couple other times he was used as a decoy that we'll go over in the All-22 where you could see the defense just flow with him, leaving other guys wide open. But as a receiving back too, I mean, just the kind of the Swiss Army knife that he could be, Curry. I mean, did you have the same reaction? Like, hey, next year, this is what we're going to see. Dylan can be that vertical, like that deep threat, home run type threat in the receiving game as well.
Absolutely. And you and I have talked about that this year, just the, being perplexed at times at how little usage he got out in the, at the receiver positions, because that's something that we had seen in the past with Deuce, lining up in the slot and getting mismatches and creating big plays through the passing game. And so it was good to see them finally put Dylan in that role, because I think Dylan's got even more of that skill set than even Deuce had to be that receiver type. And he's got more elite top end speed than Deuce had, which can be a game changer at the receiver position. So I know there's a lot of focus on, a guy like Dylan, who's an ultimate X factor, ultimate Swiss Army knife. How do we utilize him in as many different ways as possible? And through the passing game, we saw some of that on Thursday night. And so the hope would be that, yes, we continue to do that. We're putting him in the slot. We're getting him matched up on linebackers and safeties where he can run a quick slant or an inside fade or a corner route, create separation, but also let's motion him to the boundary and let's get him matched up again against a linebacker or safety, and let's just have him run a straight vertical. There are not very many linebackers or safeties in the Big 12, let alone the country, who can keep up with a guy like Dylan Edwards. And so really excited to see them use him in that way. Now Avery's got to as we saw different times throughout the year, put a little bit more air into that football, let his speed guy go run underneath of it and make a big play. And if he does that, then we're talking about Dylan Edwards having potentially more than 300 yards from scrimmage on Thursday night. So big play capability every time the ball goes his direction. We just have to continue to be creative in finding ways to get him the ball and get him in mismatch situations where he's out in space and using that speed.
I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight Joe Jackson as well. 10 touches in the game, 87 yards, a receiving touchdown that was critical to cut the game to 41-36. He had 7 carries for 50 yards. Certainly looks like a guy that is going to be a valuable piece moving forward in this K-State offense as well next year. You mentioned it, Curry. Jace Brown, he hadn't had a carry all season, and he had 3 in this game, which goes to show the different things K-State did offensively. He had 3 carries for 42 yards, highlighted by that 35-yard reverse that he had. Avery 11 for 57, as well as K-State's rushing attack ends the season averaging 6.1 yards per carry, which is pretty insane when you think about it, given the school record for yards per carry in a season was 5.27 going into this season. So K-State shattered the record by about 0.8 of a yard, which is a huge number in the grand picture. So really impressed by that. We're going to throw to a break, and we're going to come back, talk just a little bit about the defense as well, get Curry's thoughts from them, and then we're going to do the all-22 look and go through several plays for you guys, where if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the plays that we're highlighting in the background as Curry will give his expert opinion and analysis on what he sees that K-State did well, and then also a couple plays that maybe didn't run so well. But first, as always, we got to tell you about our friends over at Home Field Apparel, premier fashion company, apparel company with all the college gear that you could find, over 100 colleges to choose from throughout the country. You see DY rock all the different colleges. I'm wearing right now the campus pullover jacket. It's a throwback look jacket that's kind of retro, sleek design, super warm, and really comfortable. And they've got more than 50 K-State items to choose from on their website. They continue to release new K-State items seemingly every month. So go check them out at homefieldapparel.com. Tons of great gear, hoodies, hats, t-shirts, jackets like this. They've got several jackets on their website as well with all the retro logos and throwback looks. Be sure to get stocked up the rest of the way and get ready for football season next year. So go to homefieldapparel.com, discount code 3MAW24 will get you 15% off. Again, when you go to checkout, 3MAW24 is the discount code, 15% off your entire order.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Curry, one question to wrap on the offense. Avery Johnson, 15 of 30 passing, 195 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. In doing so, he sets the single-season school record for passing touchdowns in a season with 25. He finishes the year with 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He has 3,300-plus yards altogether between rushing and receiving. K-State actually had put out some numbers on Avery overall, 3,317 yards for Avery this season. That's the 6th most in school history by a K-State QB. He's the 2nd K-State QB in school history to win consecutive bowl games in his career. Joins Jonathan Beasley, who was the winning QB in the 99 Holiday Bowl against Washington and the 2000 Cotton Bowl against Tennessee. But not specific maybe to this game, Curry, but the overall grand picture for Avery Johnson this year. You look at the numbers, 59% completion percentage, 2,700 yards through the air, the 25 TDs to 10 interceptions in his first year as a full-time starting quarterback. How do you kind of just assess the overall picture of what Avery did this year and then look ahead and how big of a step could he take going into that 3rd full-time year at Kansas State?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I feel like he had an overwhelmingly positive season. Now, I think, and you and I have discussed this, and I know it's been discussed at length, but the one thing that didn't help Avery Johnson was the preseason hype going into the year. And that's not to say that it wasn't warranted because he is an incredible football player, but the New York Post coming out and labeling him as a Heisman dark horse before he'd ever really started a regular season football game, I think was unfair to a young guy who was still growing and maturing in that position and was I guess just about to start his first game as a full-time starter. And so I think that raised the bar unreasonably high for Avery. And so the expectation was this was going to be a guy who was going to have, a Lamar Jackson type Heisman campaign season. And that was never fair to Avery. But at the end of the day, I think, super impressed with him and his growth over the course of the year. The growth that we've seen from him in just, now 24 months ish. I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic, super optimistic about what 2025 looks like for Avery Johnson. I mean, this is a guy who we saw come in his freshman season, and he was a Wildcat quarterback essentially. He threw the football occasionally outside of the bowl game last year. He's a guy who came in running packages. They ran QB run game when Avery Johnson was in the football game by and large. And then now we see him take over for first full year as a starter, and he's got success that ranges across the board. I mean, you can look back and look at the Arizona game where Avery used his legs a ton. I think he had 120 plus rushing yards that game, diced up what we believe to be a good Arizona defense at that time. He goes on the road a couple weeks later and beats a really good Colorado football team with a big, come from behind victory late in the 4th quarter with a big time touchdown pass to Jace Brown. Gets beat up in that game and then goes on and throws for almost 300 yards against a pretty good West Virginia defense on the road, night game in Morgantown. And then obviously things got a little bit difficult at the end of the season. I think Avery was battling through some injuries. I think probably battling through some fatigue as well, mental fatigue. And so there were some struggles. There were some times where, turnovers became an issue against Houston, against Arizona State, against Iowa State as well. But at the end of the day, you have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and think about those statistics that you just threw out. This is a kid who 24 months ago, he was a senior at Mays High School who was playing 3 different sports. He was not a full-time quarterback by any measure. And now fast forward to he's 20 years old. He just finished his first full season as a starter. He had, the six most total yards from a quarterback in K-State history. And that's a program with a lot of QB history, between Michael Bishop and Jonathan Beasley and L. Roberson, Chad May, Colin Klein, Jake Waters, Josh Freeman. You think about who he's stacking up against for a stat like that. and it's entirely impressive. And so I think Avery Johnson's performance versus the unfair expectations going into the season, then you're left maybe a little bit disappointed. But Avery Johnson's performance in comparison to what we should expect from a sophomore in his first full year as a starter, overwhelmingly positive. Super excited about the future with Avery Johnson at Kansas State. I think you have to be incredibly optimistic about what things look like after he goes through another offseason, after he has a little bit more time to put on a little bit more weight and to learn the offense and learn how to read defenses a little bit better and get it and build a better rapport with his returning guys as well as the incoming guys. And so I'm a little bit of a soapbox there, but I'm very impressed by Avery Johnson and what he did in 2020.
Well, and he'll have a second year in a system with Connor Riley, who, working together all offseason. Connor Riley is going to become more comfortable as an offensive coordinator. He went through learning lessons just like Avery Johnson did this year. Matt Wells, another year. So running it back, assuming the coaching staff stays intact, I think that'll be beneficial for him as well. Look, if you look at like ESPN's quarterback rating stat, Nico at Tennessee, I'm not going to try to mispronounce his last name because I always butcher it. Nico finished 0.3 of a point ahead of Avery in QBR, and then nobody else really out of the top tier quarterbacks in his recruiting class were really that close to Avery this year. And so Avery Johnson, another year in the program going into year 3, I expect a pretty substantial jump, but I think you're exactly right. I didn't help with the expectations either, Curry.
Neither did I. I was guilty too. And I think I don't want that to be misconstrued as he didn't deserve the hype, because he did and he still does. But we being the collective, we could have toned it down just a little bit, just to give the kid a chance, just to make sure that, hey, if he didn't rise to that unreasonably high level, that it wasn't going to be deemed a failure. And so I'm as big an Avery Johnson fan as anybody, and so I'm as guilty as anybody of maybe overhype at some time at some points. But again, I think take a step back, consider everything with the stats that you threw out. And I think it's hard not to be positive about it.
Well, and the reality is, if you look at some of the best quarterbacks in school history at Kansas State, most of them you didn't even see on the field as a true sophomore. Like at this point in their program, they were in the developmental stage and they were protected, right? Yeah. They weren't being exposed out on the field to some of the mistakes that they made. And L. Roberson, I mean, if he was playing as a second-year quarterback, we saw some of the struggles that he went through, and it was really into that fourth year of his junior year where he started to break out. Michael Bishop was in junior college at this time in his career, and who knows what he looks like as a true sophomore at the P4 level at Kansas State. Anyways.
Yeah, I think Colin Klein was a receiver and I guess, and that would have been in his third year. So I think that's another thing, is I think we forget that this, he wasn't too far away from redshirting last year in terms of games played. And so this, for all intents and purposes, this is a guy in his first full year. He's not all that different from like a Sam Levitt at Arizona State. This is his first full season, and yet we treat him like he's a seasoned vet. And so I think expect more growth from him, going from year 2 to year 3 than maybe year 1 to year 2, just because of the repetition, the learning experiences that he's had at this point.
Yeah, and I think you see that throughout the history, like Jake Waters as well. First year starting quarterback, 2013. One of your friends that you played with as well, 2014, phenomenal. Has the school all-time passing record set in 2014 as he got the full-time opportunity that year. You mentioned Colin Klein, the jump that he takes. I mean, we could go down the list of guys that'll make that jump in their second year as a full-time starting quarterback. And so here I am probably going to put unrealistic expectations on Avery now next year when we're talking about this in August. But it feels like it'll be more justified next year, as he's now got 13 games under his belt this last year as a starting quarterback. Curry, one question on the defense, then we're going to go to the All-22. Obviously, it was quite the struggle early on in this game. K-State gave up 34 points in a 6-drive stretch. They were allowing over 9 yards per play. That was frustrating. Look, but I will say this, because one guy I want to hit on looking ahead to next season, and we'll do this also, we're going to highlight the defensive stop at the end of the game on the 4th and 7 near midfield. But over the last 6 drives of the game, Rutgers had 21 yards of offense on 20 plays, and the one touchdown was an 18-yard touchdown drive set up by a large punt return allowed by K-State in the special teams game. Ethan Kalakamanis, the Rutgers quarterback, dropped back 12 times on his last 6 drives. He was sacked 3 times. He completed 2 passes for 19 yards during that stretch. Rutgers' last 20 carries, they had 21 yards on the ground. They had 143 yards on the ground on their first 16. So K-State defense really stepped up. The one guy that I really wanted to talk about, Curry, and I know a guy you're extremely high on, is Zayshawn Rich, the talented true freshman corner who did not redshirt this year, was out there, played the entire second half. He took every snap at corner in the second half, was on the field making the tackle at the end of the game on the 4th and 7 play to hold Rutgers. What did you make of his effort specifically as we look ahead to a secondary that's losing their best cover guy in Jacob Parrish to the NFL draft? What did you make of what Rich did out there and the future for him?
Yeah, it was great to see. You know, I think I went to a preseason fall camp practice back in mid-August, and I remember talking with one of the coaches about some of the young guys, and multiple of them pointed out Zayshawn Rich is going to be a player here. You know, he's long, he can run. You know, he's got great size, great stature to him, and going to be a guy that's going to be, you know, a shutdown corner for us in the future. And so that took me by surprise, because if you recall, Zayshawn Rich was a guy that we stole from Wyoming late in the recruiting cycle last year. So I don't think there was a big expectation that Zayshawn Rich is going to come in and be an impact player early on. But as the staff does, they find guys, you know, they find diamonds in the rough, and those guys become good players. Jacob Parrish was one of those. And so it was really exciting, you know, having heard that 4 months ago, it was really exciting to see him be put on display. Obviously, we've seen him from time to time this year. He got reps, different games. He got more reps than others. He was in the fire in the Colorado game because all the injuries we had to the back, you know, to that secondary. But it was fun to see a guy, a true freshman, get his first full game experience and see him grow so much within that game. You know, early on, he gets beat deep on a post route, and so I think there's, you know, I think that I got into a little bit of a Twitter spat because the reaction there was, oh no, this kid's not ready. What are we doing? And then from that point on, you see that kid mature and grow over the course of the next 2.5, 3 quarters. Multiple pass breakups, great job, you know, in run support, making multiple plays in run support, and then obviously he makes the game clinching tackle late in that game, and so you got to see Zayshawn Rich on display, and you got to see a little bit about what these coaches are so excited about with Zayshawn, and I think another thing that's exciting for me is as we've gone through this roster transition where you lose a guy like Jacob Parrish, obviously you're losing Keenan Garber. And we brought in Jaden Rowe, but there's still a lot of people out there who keep, you know, hollering for, hey, we need another corner or two, we need another starting corner or two. And this whole time, you know, the expectation I think internally has been that I don't know that we need another starting corner or definitely not two, because we think Zayshawn Rich is going to be that guy. And I think he showed us that on Thursday night. He showed us that he's capable of stepping into one of the starting roles in 2025. And being a guy that is going to grow into one heck of a football player at K-State. And so really excited about Zayshawn. I think with another offseason, I think he's a guy that is going to make a big impact in 2025 and beyond.
And I thought Donovan McIntosh did some nice things in the second half of that game. And he's a redshirt freshman corner that's longer as well, 6'2", 6'3", Curry. And I think it's telling that the last 2 drives of the game against Rutgers, it was Donovan McIntosh and Zayshawn Rich, the 2 freshmen, out there at corner. Like, you want to use these bowl games for opportunities to grow and develop and look ahead to the next season. And I think we got a glimpse of the future of the cornerback room. And this one, still think K-State needs to add another corner, obviously a veteran guy, and they're trying to do that. But and you'll feel a lot better about that room if you're able to do so. But Zayshawn Rich certainly has the capacity. And this isn't just like reacting to one game, right? Like, we have heard the buzz on Zayshawn Rich for 4 months now. I mean, the fact that they were talking about him before he even took a snap as a top-tier cornerback is pretty telling of what the future could hold for him. They've been pretty good at identifying corners, especially under-the-radar kids. So, all right, Curry, let's roll with the all-22 and go through some of the plays here. All right, this first play, Curry, is the touchdown pass to Garrett Oakley in the first half of this game. And what I love about this play is you see Dylan Edwards go in motion. Watch the whole defense flow with Dylan Edwards. You see all 3 linebackers start to move to the sideline with Dylan Edwards. You see that safety on the back end go with Dylan Edwards as well in the motion. and it opens up a wide open lane for Garrett Oakley here on just a drag route across the 5-yard line. Jace also going with Avery, rolling him out to his left here, but a wide open play, just a really well designed and executed play here, I thought.
Absolutely. Great play design. You've I think at this point in the game, you'd hit on the jet sweep a couple of times. And so it's fair for the defense to give a lot of attention to Dylan Edwards and to love using him as a decoy here. And like you said, the defense really shifts with him and really puts a lot of emphasis on him. And then I think the other thing that I really like about this is not only do you use Dylan going one way, but you use your other best offensive weapon going back the other way. And those two guys draw a ton of attention from this defense. I mean, look at two defensive guys run with Jace Brown, really creating an issue within the back end of that Rutgers defense. So this is just, obviously it's a play action bootleg. And then you're rolling Avery out to the field and you're working levels to that field. You've got Jace running into the flat. Again, two guys running with him, which creates a problem for the defense on the back end. And Garrett Oakley does a good job of finding grass, running, working with his quarterback. And Avery does a good job of putting it on him and allowing him to make a play and get into the end zone. I think this is something that I want to see more of in 2025 is getting Avery outside the pocket and letting him throw, get in a design passing game outside of the pocket. Avery's thrown us that he's got a strong ability to throw the football on the run when it's on schedule. And so like this play design here, not exactly sure what Jaden Jackson is doing, to be honest with you. I think he's going to run a little bit of a post corner. I think that's the expectation to add a third level to the top of that defense. But I can't really say. At the end of the day, he ends up serving as a little bit of a screener, which helps. In live game time, I thought they were calling offensive pass interference here, but they called defensive holding or defensive pass interference on Jaden. So not exactly sure what's going on there. That could have been a bust. But I like the concept here. I love the play design. You use use Dylan as a decoy. You end up using Jace as a decoy, and it's an easy walk-in touchdown pitch and catch from Avery to Garrett Oakley.
Yeah, I thought live, Curry, they were maybe going to use Jaden as just another crosser on a rub route, right? But he falls.
I thought so too, but the way that he falls acting as though he's running is going to run back to the corner, which I guess. So initially the expectation was, maybe this is a little bit of a mesh route or a 2-under scheme. But the problem with that is why run a 2-under mesh scheme when you're rolling your QB away from that field receiver? And so I do think that he was supposed to run some sort of corner or post corner to work a third level there. But he was even if that's what he was doing, he was way, way, way too late. And by the time he was making that break, Avery was way beyond him toward the boundary. So I don't exactly know what he was doing. But at the end of the day, it worked, and he helped carry a little bit of a pick there. So we'll take it.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I love Jace going back the other way. You see two defenders suck up to him, and you see the pressure that Avery getting out of the pocket puts because that one defender eventually has to go up to Avery thinking he could run too, and it just left Garrett Oakley wide open. Get Avery out of the pocket more next year and use more motion like that with Dylan, with Jace, and those guys, and use your best weapons. I love it. All right, next play here is going to be the touchdown pass to Dylan Edwards for a 26-yarder. He goes untouched into the end zone here for touchdown. Well, he does get popped right at the end as he crosses the goal line. But Curry, this play, I like the route run here by Garrett Oakley as well. I kind of wonder if him and Jace are too close to each other when you watch this. I don't know if Dylan is the primary read, like if this is designed to go to Dylan, or if the primary read was to go vertical to Oakley or Jace. I don't know if you see the same thing I see here, but yeah, I get a little, I don't know if somebody messed up there because Oakley and Jace are within 5 yards of each other right on the hash, but obviously the play works and Dylan is wide open. But what do you kind of see here as the design and the concept?
Yeah, so from my perspective, this looks like a 4 vertical switch, and we've seen this be a play that Connor Riley likes to run. So you've got trips to the boundary or to the field. So you've got 2 receivers to the field, then Garrett Oakley inline tight end. So you've got trips to the field. And this is a 4 vertical play with number 2 and number 3 switching. So number 2 instead of number 2, which is Jace Brown running upside that field hash, he should be running to the back hash, and then Garrett Oakley, number 3, is replacing him and running to the field hash. And Garrett's release tells me that that's what this is. And so Jace should be running basically an over route to the backside hash that would where he would run into the hash right about the goal line and create a little bit of a 4 vertical scheme. I don't know what Will Ancio is doing on the backside. It looks like maybe he's just running an out or a corner route to pin that backside player. But to me, that's what this should be here. So I think this is a bust by Jace Brown. Jace has got to get across that defender's face more quickly and get to that backside hash so he or Garrett can come open if the defense gets confused by the switch. And I think if he does run that route the right way, Garrett Oakley comes open for a touchdown. But great diagnosis by Avery here. He quickly sees that it's not there. He quickly sees that he doesn't have anybody available. And so he just throws it right to his most electric option and says, you know what, Dylan, go make a play. And I think this is something that we saw multiple times on Saturday night where we faked to the running back. We faked a little bit of a sweep or stretch play to the running back. And then that running back as a check down became the most viable option very quickly. And it turned into a big play. And so love using Dylan as a decoy, using him in that play action fake. And then quickly, hey, you're our outlet. We're going to get to you quickly if reads 1 and 2 aren't there right away. And so great job by Avery getting through his reads and getting the ball down into the flat to Dylan Edwards, and great job by Dylan going and making a play.
Yeah, and if Avery is a split second late there on that throw, that D end or that linebacker coming upfield is going to either bat it down or potentially even pick it off. And so Avery got it out there just in the nick of the time, got Dylan on the run to where he could use his speed to get upfield. But yeah, I've been wondering about the Oakley and Jace thing, because Oakley is going to be open if that secondary defender covering Jace isn't running right there 3 yards ahead of him. But so I had wondered for your thoughts on that. So that's a great explanation. All right, we'll roll here with the next one. Big play right here, Curry. This game, if Dylan Edwards does not make this run, K-State's down 34-17 at this point. There's around 6 minutes left in the third quarter. 65-yard touchdown run. I don't think K-State has a chance of winning this game. Momentum is completely lost at this point. And then Dylan pops this home run play, and you could feel the whole thing swing. K-State gets a 3-and-out on the ensuing drive. But, this is an inside run for Dylan Edwards here, and he basically goes untouched until right around the 20-yard line. Well blocked, well executed. What do you see here?
Yeah, so this is some sort of power run. You've got Easton Kilty and Hadley Panzer pulling on this play, and both of them do a nice job of pulling and getting kick out blocks, or at least just getting in the way. What I like about this play design, and we saw this quite a bit on Thursday night, is the usage of both Dylan and Joe in the backfield. This is something that we begged for really a lot during the season, of wanting to see Dylan and DJ out there at the same time. It didn't get a ton of, but we did get more of that on Thursday night. And I think here is an example of what you get when you do that. At this point, this is kind of a little bit of a similar setup to the touchdown pass to Garrett Oakley, but you can see that the fake that you get from Avery and Joe after the fact, where essentially they're faking some sort of QB run or that bootleg play action, it draws a little bit of attention from the defense and keeps that high safety wide. I mean, if you look at one of the safeties at the start of this play, the field or the boundary safety, look at him run with Joe and Avery and create a massive running lane for Dylan there. And so that's what you get when you use your personnel and you use them creatively. And so excellent play call here. Love, again, the 2 running back design. Love using this 21 type personnel more and more, especially when you've got 2 playmakers like Joe and Dylan. And ultimately it's that gives you that massive running lane. And if you give Dylan space, as we know, chances are he's going to bust a big one. And so I think it's exciting to see the usage there. Hope that we see more of that in 2025.
Yep, you're exactly right. As I was rewatching that and you were talking, I see that safety just cheat out to go with Joe Jackson, and that opens things up for the home run.
As Avery keeps that, it's a run pass option at that point, and Avery's either dumping that to Joe in the flat, who's going to go get big yardage, or Joe becomes the lead blocker and Avery takes off around the edge. And so that fake right there alone put massive pressure on the defense. So love the play design.
Yeah. All right, this next play is going to be Dylan Edwards' second touchdown run on the ground. This is what gives K-State the final lead in the game, as they go up 42-41, then convert the 2-point conversion to go up 44-41 to win the game. And there they get Dylan off tackle on the edge, well blocked, well executed. I do want to highlight a couple of things here, Curry. And Jace Brown down the field, blocking as well, right around the 10-yard line, helps seal the defender to give the touchdown run. K-State's got another wide receiver that's blocking well here. Easton Kilty, left tackle, does a really nice job sealing the edge. And then I can't tell if it's Garrett Oakley. It's a tight end for Kansas State that does a wonderful job kicking out his guy here as well. Really well blocked. And then obviously Dylan Edwards with his explosive playmaking ability. You get him on the edge and look what he does.
Yeah, just incredible execution here all the way around. I mean, this is the type of play, and honestly, at the time, just given the way that the flag distribution was going, I fully expected to see a flag get thrown here, because anytime you run off tackle, wide off tackle, wide power play, it puts a lot of stress on your blockers. It not almost always, but often draws a flag, because you're getting, those defenders are getting, you're getting outside their frames. And so just really impressive execution, blocking by our guys, and really impressive that nobody drew a hold here. And you can really point at a number of guys here. You can point at 5 or 6 guys whose blocks caused this to go for a touchdown. I mean, you mentioned, Jaden Jackson and Jace Brown on the edge. Excellent job blocking out there by those two guys. I think Jace has gotten some grief over the course of his career so far for not being as willing to run block as maybe some of the other guys. But here you see him engage with his guy 25 yards down the field, and his block is ultimately what allows Dylan to get into the end zone. But then beyond that, you look at Garrett Oakley. Garrett Oakley does a great job with his kick out block. Easton Kilty does a great job with his seal block on the edge on the left side of that defense there. Taylor Portier does a great job of getting up to the second level, getting just enough of his guy, but letting go when he sees, okay, if I hold on any longer, I'm probably getting a hold. Excellent job there. Hadley Panzer at the point of attack gets pushed back a little bit, but does enough to stay in that guy's way, and to make sure that he gets loose. And there's again, you could walk basically every guy on the field, and say, okay, that guy's block is what led us, what led us to getting, ultimately scoring a touchdown here. I think Sam Heck has a pancake block there, at the point of attack as well. So excellent execution here. Again, love the fact that we're getting, that we're running off tackle, that we're getting our guys out in space. And then at the end of the day, it's just a heck of a run by Dylan Edwards. Him getting up to that level where Jason's locked in with his defender, putting his foot in the ground. He puts that final DBUs in space on skates, and that allows him to get by him and into the end zone. And that's just the exact type of outcome that you get when you give the ball to Dylan Edwards in space.
I actually thought it was, I was worried. I kept waiting for the flag icon to appear on the broadcast area on the play, because I did see Sam Hecht on the pancake block. Like, a lot of times you see that called a hold, right? Because it looks like he tackles the guy, and you see officials get baited into that, especially on stretch runs like that. So I was worried. I had saw it live. I thought they might flag Hecht on something that really didn't need to play. So glad they did not. K-State took the lead there and held on. All right, we'll go to the touchdown pass to Joe Jackson. This cuts the game to 41-36. And here I think it's Lofton that is running. Nick Lofton's running just a little bit of a rub route here. Curry, maybe. I was a little worried they might call OPI on this, but they did not. Joe Jackson gets it on the edge, and K-State gets in for a touchdown. But talk us through this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is what they burnt us on early in the game, where their running back caught a wide open touchdown, and where we failed to sift through the screens, and so we gave them a little bit of their own medicine. And I think excellent job by two guys here. Excellent job by Braden Lofton. He absolutely makes contact with the defender who's in man coverage on Joe Jackson, but he does it while looking like a receiver. He does a great job of pushing the outside leverage of the guy guarding him, and then he runs an obvious slant route. He looks back to find the quarterback, and just so happens to draw contact with that Rutgers linebacker. So it's excellent execution of this pick play by Braden Lofton, and then it's an excellent job by Avery of quickly getting to his guy, understanding that Joe's got great leverage against his defender. And it's a great job by Joe of catching the ball and getting upfield. Joe is a guy that, he's got good size to him. He's got good speed. We've seen a little bit of power from him, but we've also seen that like DJ Giddens, he's got an ability to catch the football out of the backfield. And so impressed by Joe. He didn't get as much run in this game as maybe I thought he would, or he thought he would, but he did a good job of coming in late, giving the defense a little bit of variation and causing problem for that Rutgers defense.
Apologies to Braden. I don't know why I called him Nick. I was trying to think of getting his brother confused too with had Chase Lofton, who's in the recruiting class, the 2025 class as well, going to Florida State. So, yeah, and look, that throw is on the money too, which gets Joe Jackson right on the run. How many times do you see a quarterback, if you just misplace that ball, the slightest, he has to turn around or slow down, they're going to get Joe tackled around the 3-2 yard line there, but instead hits him right in stride, gets in the end zone, and K-State cuts it 2-5. All right, we'll go to the next one. This is actually the reverse to Jace that we talked about earlier in the show, Curry, but K-State executes the blocks really well. This goes for 35 yards. Jace hadn't had a carry all season until this, and K-State seals the edge, does a really nice job here. Just walk us through this one.
Yeah, excellent play design. And because we hadn't run this year, it wasn't something that Rutgers had seen on tape and knew how to prepare for. And so love the play design here. You fake to Dylan, who's obviously drawing the attention of the defense, and then you flip the ball to Jace on a reverse and let him use his wheels to get 35 yards. And I think the most impressive thing is the fake, the fake motion, fake run blocking, steps from Garrett Oakley,
yep,
who then pivots back out and goes and gets a great kick out block on that outside defender on that wide corner. And then, really fun to see a couple of our big guys getting down the field. I mean, look at Sam Heck make a great block at the point of attack, get enough on his guy. And then he's 30 yards down the field running right next to Jace Brown. And serving as a little bit of a wall for those pursuing defenders. So excellent job by Sam Heck there. And then you've got Taylor Portier, who also does a good job of getting up to that next level and trying to go find a guy. If he could, if Taylor was a little bit faster at this stage in his career, he may have been able to get a little something on that last defender and spring this for a big touchdown. But it's excellent effort by a number of guys, Garrett Oakley, Sam Heck, and Taylor Portier in particular. Great play design, great execution again.
Yep, and you can see the defense flow with Dylan Edwards on the initial look right out of the way there. See, yep, and that opens it up. And look, I got to say, Garrett Oakley down the stretch this year played some really good football. He's a guy that we had a ton of high hopes for coming into this season, sophomore tight end, and this game, another touchdown catch, and we've highlighted here a couple of really nice blocks as well. I expect him to have a big year.
Yeah, he's a big play guy, and yeah, his blocking in this game alone was impressive. And Garrett's a guy who we've seen over the course of 2 years. He's got to stay healthy. He's a guy who's been banged up and he's missed some games, or he's been limited. And I think ultimately, gotta be better at making tougher catches. He's an excellent playmaker. He's got great speed for a tight end. He runs good routes. Occasionally he puts the ball in the turf. And so I think Garrett's a guy that to make that next step, got to be healthy, got to be reliable, and we got to make tough catches. And if he does that, Garrett's the type of guy who can follow in Ben Simmons' footsteps and play on Sundays.
Yep, absolutely. All right, this next one, this is getting Avery out on the perimeter again. Now, this isn't necessarily by design. This is Avery with his instincts, feeling out the DN, getting upfield. Avery gets out of the pocket. This is 4th and 3. I mean, this is the game right here. K-State is down 41-29. There's about 12 minutes left in the game. K-State's going for it on 4th down inside their own 35-yard line. Good call by Chris Kleiman to go ahead and do that, because if they don't get it, they're not winning this game. Probably if they punt, they're also going to lose just around 12 minutes left. Avery escapes the pocket, and then he looks downfield. Initially live, Curry, I'm like, just run, just go get the first down. He'll get it by a couple of yards. So you do see that linebacker safety coming up. But love the courage here by Avery Johnson to just go ahead and float it downfield to Dante Cephas, who converts it into an explosive 35-yard play.
Yeah, this is excellent job by Avery all the way around here. There were a couple times earlier in this game where when the pocket collapsed, maybe he didn't look as comfortable at getting out of the pocket, or when he did get out of the pocket, wasn't keeping his eyes up and looking down the field. And so I think there were some times early on where the off-schedule plays just weren't going overly well for us. But this is teach tape right here. I mean, right tackle gets beat. Avery does a great job of stepping up in the pocket and getting out of the pocket, using his wheels to extend the play. And the most impressive thing here is the way that as he's running toward the boundary, he's got his eyes up and he's looking down the field. And as he gets closer to the boundary and closer to the line of scrimmage, to that first down marker, he forces 2 defenders to collapse or converge on him, and then he just dumps it down the field to Dante Cephas, who goes and makes a big play. Man, this is the type of stuff that you see from Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson all the time. And so excellent job by Avery here, and excellent job by Dante Cephas. Dante comes open on this mesh scheme, this 2-under scheme early. But then he does a great job of working with his QB. He's kind of covered up by that flat defender as he gets toward the edge. But then he takes a little bit of a higher angle to give Avery something to throw to and to give Avery a space to throw into. So this is excellent jobs of scramble drill by Avery and Dante Cephas. And then a great job by Jaden Jackson, down the field of getting a block on a guy and allowing Dante Cephas to get an extra 5 or 10 yards. And so this is great work by Avery and Dante.
Absolutely. I was going to say Dante Cephas also knowing to get more depth on his route there. If he keeps running just horizontally across the field, he's not going to pop nearly as open, but going deeper, giving Avery more space to work with resulted in the big play. All right. Huge play in the game. All right. Long completion here to Joe Jackson. The reason I included this play, Curry, is because what I like here is Avery is going through his reads, right? I think his initial reads, either Dylan or Jace, potentially, you can see him looking to the left of the field, surveying the field. And then he eventually pops down, sees his eyes down the flat. Joe Jackson wide open, gets 25, 26 yards. You already mentioned it. Joe Jackson, Dylan Edwards both look to be tremendous receiving running backs, which is going to be great for the future of this program. But I just like here that Avery went through his reads, didn't panic, stayed in the pocket, and found Joe Jackson for a big play.
Yeah, good. This is excellent by Avery. This is a little bit of a flood concept. You've got all four of your receivers, your primary receivers who are flooding the field. You've got Jace running under, Garrett running an in route. And it's a good job by the Rutgers defense of running with their guys and locking those 4 guys down. I think there's a bust somewhere, because really on those four primary targets, or I guess on the two boundary targets, Jace and Garrett, it appears to be man coverage. But then the guy who would then otherwise be in man coverage on Joe Jackson is vacating the area completely, looking as though he's running a little bit of a Tampa 2 coverage. And so it's an excellent job by Avery of quickly understanding that, okay, neither of my primaries are there, and I got to get it to my check down as quickly as possible, which I think is something that Avery has really done well at as this year has progressed, is finding his check down and just taking what the defense is giving him, which is what the NFL expects of their quarterbacks. And so, you find your check down in Joe Jackson, and you allow Joe to go make a football play. And so I think this is just good execution, good growth by Avery Johnson here.
Yep. All right. This next play is going to be the 2-point conversion K-State did not get. And, you watch this live, K-State, I think it just cut it to 34-23. You got Dylan Edwards going in motion from kind of a quads look. And, looking at it live, Curry, I was like, Dylan, he's wide open. That linebacker doesn't see him. You got him crossing across the middle of the field. Play's got to go to him, right? What do you see here? Nobody else really looks open. This is a play where Avery needs to go to Dylan, right?
Yeah. So I like the play design. I think it's a creative one. This is something that we've seen. I think we saw it in the Houston game where we threw a back shoulder to Keegan Johnson for a touchdown. So I like the formation. I like the design. I guess one gripe that I would have is if we're gonna have a single receiver to the backside of a quad, let's put one of our receivers back there rather than one of our tight ends. Maybe let's throw a Dante Cephas or a Jaden Jackson back there, in case you want to throw a jump ball or a back shoulder. But love bringing Dylan into motion here, putting him in motion, getting his speed rolling, and then running him on an under route. The defense creates a little bit of a natural mesh for him. And so all that Avery has to do here is let him clear that middle linebacker and then just throw it toward that far pylon. And Dylan's going to run right under the football for an easy conversion. So I think just a little more patience here by Avery. Pocket holds up well. Let your primary come open and let's get this 2-point conversion and move on.
Yeah. Shouldn't Dylan be the primary read on this design?
And I would imagine that he is, absolutely. And just the way that Jace reacts when the ball gets thrown to him tells me that he's nothing but a decoy. He's just grabbing a guy out there on the edge. And so, yeah, I think Dylan's absolutely the primary. I think what Avery is seeing, though, is he's seeing that he's got a guy running with him, and he's also got a middle linebacker right in the middle of the defense who's creating a little bit of a roadblock for Dylan. But Dylan does a great job of avoiding that middle linebacker, again, creating a little bit of a natural mesh, within that defense. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to trust your speed guy. That DB who's running with Dylan Edwards is not going to keep up with him running directly across the football field. So let him clear that middle linebacker, throw the ball into open space where only Dylan can go and get it, and Dylan's going to go make a play, and we're going to get that 2-point conversion, and then nobody's going to be asking the question of why did we go for 2?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they ran that play you're right, against Houston, and it was the fade. They threw the back shoulder throw to Keegan that they ran it to, and they had motioned Dylan in that same situation. What I would say, Curry, is I would like to see that play ran with more field to work with as well, because I would love to see them get Dylan like that in motion, in speed, going across the middle of the field on some simple drag routes next year, and get him with more space to work with where he can just outrun guys and get rather than out in the flat. Get him going over the middle on a short crosser like that and give him a ton of space to work with. And space.
Completely agree.
Yeah. All right. This next one, look, we've had a lot of positive plays, so we had to show you guys a couple ones to be critical of here. Look, this is Avery Johnson's interception in the game. This was a critical mistake in the first half, next to last drive, I believe, for Kansas State. Avery's design here is Avery to go out to his left, but Curry, to me, Avery's either just got to throw this ball away or he's got to be a little more patient and let Dante Cephas maybe potentially pop open deep. I know some pressure is coming, but Avery's footwork here, to me, seems a little out of whack. Like he throws off balance, doesn't really set his feet. What do you make of this mistake here by Avery?
Yeah, it's just, I think, just a little, trying to do a little too much. I think at the end of the day, we're down here. We're trying to get points on the board before the end of the half. And just trying to force a football where football can't really be forced. And we saw, I think early in this game, we saw Avery make a few throws that were picks or could have been picks. And so this is, another example of us moving the pocket, getting Avery outside, which I do like. I don't know that I love doing that into the boundary because it just shrinks the field so much. And you're getting a cover 2 look to the boundary, which makes this play really, really tough. And so I think Avery's got to diagnose this. It's cover 2 into the boundary, which is going to make this really, really difficult. So I need to throw this ball into the third row. If he's going to try to force something, then he needs to, set his feet and throw one deep to Dante Cephas, who at the very least is going to be in the single coverage there on the back end, or could be wide open. But at the end of the day, he needs to say, okay, look, we're rolling this pocket into the boundary, and they've got cover 2 rolled up, and there's going to be nothing there, and I need to throw this ball into the stands.
Yeah, I think when you look at next year, I think those are the types of plays you hope with another year in the program that Avery learns to just either throw it away, be a little more patient, go deep, recognize the one-on-one to Cephas. So those are the growing pains and the lessons that'll be learned with another offseason. All right, last play here that we're going to go through. Look, we had to throw a defensive play in because this is the 4th and 7 stop that basically seals the game for K-State. Zayshawn Rich makes the tackle. You can see Marquise Siegel there as well. K-State brings the house. They blitz 7 guys, Curry. They're in 0 coverage, manned up on 4 receivers. I think they realized that they would probably try to hit the short crosser, knowing that they were bringing the house. And you can see Zayshawn Rich's instincts. You could see Siegel come off his man as well. It had no chance of working. Now, I'll tell you live, when it got completed, I'm thinking, oh, gosh, usually when you see guys bring the house and they complete that short crosser, it's going to go for some yardage. But K-State does a really nice job, and Zayshawn Rich here makes the play to end the game, essentially.
Yeah, and this is, to me, I think we didn't talk a whole lot about the defense, but to me, this game is reminiscent of the Tulane game in a lot of ways, where in the first half, we did not get pressure on the quarterback, and the quarterback was able to stand in the pocket, pick us apart, or even pick us apart with his feet. And then when we started to get pressures home, get pressures home and speed him up, that's when he really started to struggle, and when our defense started to have success. And I think that's when our defense has been, at its best this year, is when we're getting pressure home. And this is an example of that here. I mean, you bring 7 guys, you put your back in, you say, okay, back in, we're going to trust you guys here. We're going to get a guy home. We're going to speed him up. And then you guys got to go make a play. And that's exactly what happens here. Zayshawn does a really good job of understanding where the sticks are here, of making sure that he's keeping his leverage on that defender. And then when that ball gets thrown, I mean, look at that closing speed there. And that's what you get from a guy who's 6'2" and can run. An excellent job by Marquise and Jack Fabris as well, coming off their guys and pursuing this receiver as well. I mean, this guy didn't get anywhere close to the sticks. So this is excellent execution here by the defense, and it's a great job by a young guy of understanding the situation and going and making a football play to end this game.
Yeah, I mean, 3 sacks in his last 12 drop back attempts. I thought Tobi Osasami, Chidi Obiizor, some of those guys were terrific. Austin Moore, the defensive game MVP, has 1.5 tackles for loss to put a bow on his fabulous career at Kansas State. 6 tackles in the game. Shout out to Austin Moore. And all those seniors who laid it on the line in this game that could have opted out. Marquise Siegel as well for playing in the game, and Brandon Mott as well. And so, yeah, shout out to the defense who stepped up in the second half. Hopefully we avoid those slower starts next year and don't have the explosiveness that Rutgers was having, but they adjusted and made it work and were great down the stretch. Curry, as we put a bow on this show for the next 8 months and don't bring it back until August, I mean, just looking ahead, K-State's brought in some good pieces in the transfer portal. As you look to the 2025 team, what holes do you still see that you would like to see them address, and how do you kind of assess what they brought in so far and looking ahead to making this what they need to make this a Big 12 championship type roster for 2025?
Yeah, I think, I think we're in a really good spot. I guess let's start with that. I think it's funny, you look at the portal and what it's become, and we've seen it with our basketball program as well, but you look at the portal and there's almost this like desire to be the team that's out there just landing all the portal pieces. There's a desire to be the Texas Tech or the KU, the team who's just snagging portal guys left and right. And that's we've had that be the case with basketball for 2 or 3 of the last 3 years, and there's there's an excitement factor to that. But to me, I think there's more value in being the team that is, hey, we've got a great core in place, and we're just going to go plug and play a couple pieces. We're going to go get a couple key guys to mesh with that existing core and allow us to come right back and be better than we were this year. And I think that's what this staff has done. I mean, you look at a number of key positions. You look at quarterback, you look at running back, you look at tight end, you look at defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker to a lesser degree, safety to a lesser degree. Those are positions where there's not a huge need. And we've got a lot of key guys in place, and we're just trying to, grab a couple here and there to fill in where possible. And that's a luxury to have, is to know that a number of position groups are really set in stone, and you know what you've got with those guys. And then beyond that, it's just going out and finding the key pieces to go and plug into that roster. And so it's been, receivers been a big focus, and we've obviously landed Jaron Bradley, Jerron Tibbs. We brought him the JUCO guy. We've got several young guys coming in as well. Jake Brown's coming back, which is obviously massive for us. We've got some young guys on the roster we hope will make a jump next year. Then you bring in Lincoln Cure, and you've still got that Dylan Edwards, that ultimate chess piece out there to play that receiver position too. You feel really good about where that room is at right now compared to where it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. So you do that there. You may go get another running back, but that's just that's just a luxury at this point. I don't think there's a need, as we saw from last Thursday night's game with Joe and Dylan. You've got 2 really good players there, as well as some other young guys around them. You fill in Austin Moore's position with Gabe Powers, a highly touted kid from Ohio State, a big kid who can run, rangy guy. You go out and get 2 safeties. You go get Marquavius Moss, a kid that they really, really like from West Georgia, that they feel like could step into Marquis Siegel's shoes, plug and play guy. And we know the success that this staff has had diagnosing secondary guys on the market. Then you go get a Gunnar Maldonado, who's a guy who's a captain and all Pac-12 player for Arizona in 2023. This is a guy who's going to be a captain of the defense and a guy who's going to be a big player for us. And so you like that addition there to add those 2 guys to the room with VJ, Colby McAllister, and Jack Fabris. So you feel good about the additions there. And then you go get a guy like Jaden Rowe. Jaden was a highly touted recruit at Oklahoma. He's a Julius Brents type player, big, physical, fast player. Just has not been able to stay healthy. If Jaden's a guy that can stay healthy, he's going to be a difference maker in the back end of our defense next year. And so I think, you feel really good about what we've added to this roster. Now, you still got to go get a couple pieces. I think there's still, you still got to get another couple offensive linemen, preferably a couple offensive tackles to add to, what we've got coming back in Sam Hecht, potentially Taylor Portier and or Hadley Panzer, Andrew Linegang, John Pastore, and then Amos Talalele I don't know how to say his last name.
Amos Talalele. Yeah. We'll get used to him. Yeah, he is a mauler, man.
Yeah, he's a mauler. So you go get a couple more offensive linemen, preferably tackles, to add into that group, and you start to feel really good about what you've got there. And then potentially, like you mentioned earlier, one more cornerback to throw in with Jaden and Zayshawn and Donovan McIntosh and some of the others there as well. And then potentially some depth pieces at other places as well. And so we're in a really good spot where the core of our roster is young, is coming back. We know what we have in those players. The portal is always such an unknown in terms of what are we getting in this player and what are we getting in this person? Are they going to be a locker room fit? Well, when you're not going out and adding that many pieces because your roster is largely intact, you don't have to answer those questions. because you know the type of player and the type of locker room fit that you're getting with a guy who's coming back. And so I think really good spot. I think the staff is going to, they're going to attack the portal once it reopens here, once the dead period lifts here on January 1. We've got a Malik Benson coming in at receiver, Kansas kid, played at Bama, played at Florida State. And then Marion Fortenberry, young corner from South Alabama, who had a great true freshman season, coming in as well, in addition to some other guys. You add a couple more pieces, and all of a sudden this roster starts to look like a really, really good one for 2025. And so I'm excited. If you can't tell, I think it's going to be a great roster. If we can finish it off with a couple key pieces, I think things are going to be looking up for 2025.
Well, I think retention is the big storyline with this team. Curry, because you could have been talking about losing a Jace Brown a month ago. Now he is staying. Dylan Edwards, Joe Jackson back. You already mentioned it. Jace Brown, by the way, 823 yards receiving, 47 receptions. 823 yards receiving is a record for a K-State sophomore in school history. So a tremendous piece coming back there. Look, you mentioned in the D-line, retaining Toby, Ryan Davis, all those guys that are coming back at defensive end, Cheedy, Jordan Allen, Uso, potentially Damian Ilalio at nose tackle. You don't even have to go get a D lineman. And those are some of the hardest pieces to find, right? And so
Absolutely.
You feel pretty good there. I will say this, about Jaden Rowe. You know who else didn't stay healthy before was Julius Brents at Iowa. Mm-hmm. And then look what you mentioned, the Julius Brents comp. And, he was coming off an injury when K-State got him out of Iowa. Look, if Jaden Rowe hits, because this was a kid that was tremendously athletic and a lot of size, think how big K-State is at corner next year if Jaden Rowe hits, because you got Zayshawn Rich at 6'1", and you got Donovan McIntosh at 6'3". K-State and Rowe is about 6'2", 6'3" as well. That could even play some safety. You'd be really big at corner. It also could be really big at receiver, Curry, because you talk about if Lincoln Kerr can come in and give you some snaps out on the perimeter, out wide, probably in his first year, 6'4", 6'5". Jaron Bradley, 6'5". Jaron Tibbs, the Purdue transfer, 6'3". You're talking about get a lot of size. And then Malik Benson, if you could get him, he's that burner type that stretches the field vertically. And you can use Dylan Edwards vertically as well. And then you got Jace, who's already a guy that's averaging 17.5 yards per catch in his 2 years in Manhattan. Look what I'm doing here. I'm going to be talking about 11-1 again come August when we're doing this show, when I already told everybody that I would probably tone down the expectations to play a little more realistic, so I wouldn't be in a disappointment.
It'll be obviously it'll be interesting to see the schedule come out here in 3 or 4 weeks, and so it'll be interesting to see what things look like. Then what that schedule shakes out to be. We already know who we're going to play and where we're going to play them, but in terms of what the progression looks like, but I think for internally, I think coaches, players, I think the expectation has always been that, hey, 2024 could be a really good year, but 2025 could be a great year. And so I don't think it's unfair to say, okay, here we go again. I'm going to unfairly set expectations for 2025, because I do think in 2025 the bar should be super high, because of your guy Avery Johnson coming back for a second full year as a starter and all those other pieces that we've talked about. If we can fill out the rest of this roster, and so I look forward to joining you on here and hopefully in July or August and talking about how the Cats are going to be playing on New Year's Eve in 2025. So I think it's going to be a fun year for us. Got to finish out the roster strong. Got to keep guys healthy, obviously, and see that growth that you expect to see year over year from your young guys. And I think next year could be a fun one.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait to be back here with you. I hate that we have to go on an 8-month break until football really starts to come back, but we'll be excited talking again this next August, hopefully about a Cats team that's added several more portal pieces. We'll have all the portal coverage here, transfer portal updates, etc., here on KCSN on the 3 Mile channel to bring you updates with DY John. We'll get the full crew back here in the next few days and start updating you guys on the activity that's going on in the portal as K-State looks to add a few more pieces to what they hope is a Big 12 championship roster in 2025. Appreciate Curry, as always, doing this show with us each year. Just tons of fun. This year we added the All-22 look, which was a lot more fun and unique. Hopefully you all enjoyed that. We'll try to do that again next season as well. Appreciate all the NIL stuff that Curry does and supports Kansas State, and also Riverbank Brewing doing the NIL deal to bring 14 different players on the show this year. We'll see if we can do it again next year. as well. Appreciate Curry Sexton. Appreciate Nick Springer behind the scenes producing the show. I'm Cole Manbeck signing off on the final season or final show of 3 Mile Bonus Pod for the 2024 football season.